Good morning. Over the last week or so, I'm sure we've all felt liberated by the easing of lockdown. With the shops now open, there's much more activity and things are starting to feel normal again. However, we've seen from the headline news how easy it is for us to relax, to drop our guard and misunderstand where we are in controlling the pandemic. Having artificially suppressed the virus through shutting ourselves away and social distancing, it's important that we remember that the virus is still out there. The next phase is much more dangerous. We've now been entrusted with the freedom to use our own intelligence and common sense to keep it under control, rather than be dictated by strict rules. Not everyone you've seen has applied this good sense, as we've seen on the beaches of Bournemouth, and actually we've seen it alongside the river in Marlow too. We've already seen across the country some local resurgences, with some talk about towns going into localised lockdown again. So to stop this growing, we all have a responsibility to think about our own localities and show intelligence and good sense to avoid this happening where we live. I'm really looking forward to seeing Year 10 return again this week. In fact, as I'm giving this assembly now, or as you're watching this assembly now, I might be outside ushering them in through the archway. At Borlase, we're going to stick with the 2-metre rule because we think that's good sense to follow. And of course, this doesn't feel natural to us. When you see your friends for the first time, you don't want to be standing miles apart from them. But we all know we've had to learn new behaviours, new ways of greeting one another, new social dances in corridors as we pass one another on pavements and inside the school. A new etiquette, putting on a mask if we know that we can't be 2 metres apart in that environment. Hand washing, hand sanitising has become just part of what we do. Because as our liberty increases, so must our personal responsibility for protecting ourselves and others increase. If we get that right, then we can all concentrate on all the other important issues around us that still really matter. Your learning, academic research, issues to do with justice and fairness, keeping physically and mentally healthy, and how we sustain the arts. These are all issues that we've covered in assemblies over recent weeks and in tutor time. And I'd like us to bring us back again to an issue that was right on the top of our agenda before we went into lockdown and needs to be back at the top again. The enforced changes to behaviour have raised our awareness of how we can all contribute to making this a greener world. And what we need to seize now is the opportunity to permanently change those behaviours for the better and not slip back into the old normal. The current pandemic has had an impact on lowering carbon emissions by roughly 10% across the world. Although this feels like good news, we've felt all the benefits of cleaner air and quieter skies through the crisis. Emissions have to fall by at least 7.6% every year to 2050 if we're going to keep our global warming below 1.5%. Now that was a nationally or an internationally agreed target, and we can see just how much we have to do to change our lives to stop global industry, travel, activity in order to make a 10% dent. So there needs to be a much bigger understanding of how we can make changes while sustaining our economies. So what have we learned that we can do as individuals through this period? Well, we've all learned that we can walk further, and actually it has a positive benefit on our health. We don't need to get in the car to go everywhere. We've learned to get on our bikes more, and we know that for many of us, this could be our normal mode of transport coming to school. I'd like to see far more of us walking and cycling to school, and we can respond by increasing the number of spaces that we've got for parking bicycles. We've learned to enjoy the green spaces that are local to us and activities out of doors. And I hope we've learned the importance of respecting those green spaces and our environment. We've been shocked, I think, to see where people have left litter and debris, creating mess and risking even more spread of disease. We're using our own cups and water bottles to avoid contact with a virus, so we can sustain those behaviours as it has an impact on plastic usage. We've noticed where biodiversity is diminished and where, through this period, it's been able to thrive again, and it's had a positive impact on our environment. We've started to use masks, and now we need to make sure that what we do is wear reusable ones, not wear disposable throwaway masks. We need to manage our pocket-sized hand sanitizer dispensers, thinking about how we buy larger bottles and fill them up from home. We've been told that communication technology has advanced in 3 months at a speed that it might have taken 5 years to do so under normal circumstances. At a micro level in school, we're using far less paper, we're using Google Meet technology, and I'm really hoping that I don't need to use my car to drive to Aylesbury once a week, sort of pumping carbon into the air. We've had a significant impact as individuals, but the actions of towns and cities will drive all of this faster. I hope that through this period we've moved forward in developing electric vehicles and chargers across towns to support them. We do need to reimagine our towns and roads and the way that they're laid out if provision for walking and cycling and public transport is to be improved. And cities are leading this transition with innovative buildings and infrastructure projects. Some are already banning cars and trucks as a temporary measure. In Milan, they're relocating 35 kilometres of street space to cyclists and pedestrians. Brussels is creating 40 kilometres of new cycle paths. France is tempting cyclists out with subsidies. And in the UK, the government has announced a £2 billion infrastructure scheme to encourage more walking and cycling across London. In London, they're looking at car-free bridges and streets. So we need to be asking ourselves in Marlow, how are we going to respond to this? Many cities and towns are exploring some form of circular economy in which waste is minimalised and resources kept in use for as long as possible through recycling and reuse. I was really impressed by the Waste Watcher app put forward for the Longitude Prize by Maya, Rusha, Holly and Daisy. This is the kind of creative thinking needed to take us forward, because this is a time for a new imaginative economy, for genuine ethical entrepreneurism. We don't need to revert back to the old economy and go back to buying throwaway items. What do we sell and buy in a new emerging world that values nature, cleaner air, well-being experiences above generating waste? This is a challenge for all of you to apply your intellect and imagination to. Borlasians can lead the way through their individual behaviours, yes, but you can come up with the bigger solutions too, to make this a better world for all of us to live in, going forward into the future.